Welcome to Drawtober 2022. While drawing, I'll talk about LGBT topics and at the end, rate my artwork. I even colored my ratings according to different pride flags. Although, just because the pride flag is in a low rating doesn't reflect my opinion on said pride flag or invalidate the identity or sexuality. Perfect Pumpkin is the best and is given to 1 a week. Wonderful Witch is an A and Spoopy Spider is a B. Magnificent Moon is a C, Creative Candy Corn is a D, and Scary Skeleton is an F. Now let's get into this week's artwork. Questioning. It's something everyone in the LGBT community faces, and even some straight people. Unsure of your sexuality or gender identity, not sure how to define yourself yet. It can be a very scary time. Although this can happen at any age in life, it's very common among young teens who are going through puberty, which can be extremely hard if you're growing up in a homophobic household. Exploring yourself and how you feel isn't a bad thing. Just make sure you're doing so in a safe environment. Remember, you are not alone. Many people have gone through this before you. Many people will go through this after you, and many of your peers could be going through this too. Today's theme was mushrooms, and the sub-theme was sexuality. Did you know mushrooms actually have 17,000 sexes? So I drew a magical mushroom species and imagined what it would look like if they were questioning. I have to give this one Spoopy Spider because of the middle mushroom. The mushroom head looks a little weird and not like I wanted it to. Non-binary. To many, it can seem confusing, and to others, they will refuse to use they/them pronouns in a singular context. Although, grammatically speaking, using they/them pronouns in a singular context when you don't know the person's gender is perfectly acceptable. An example being is, what is their name? A very common phrase using they/them pronouns. Non-binary means that someone doesn't feel as a woman nor as a man. And non-binary is also an umbrella term, and I'll be getting into some more of those terms later this month. Since today's theme was frog and the sub-theme was non-binary, I took a page out of the Princess and the Frog's book and decided to draw a non-binary royal frog person. This was one of the contenders for Perfect Pumpkin. The competition was stiff this week, but after asking some friends and reconsidering, I'm gonna give it Wonderful Witch. Pansexual is when you're attracted to multiple genders. An example of a different gender other than man and woman is one we covered yesterday, non-binary. Pansexual is defined differently depending on the person who's using the label. It can mean that you're just attracted to personality. It could mean that you could potentially fall in love with just about anyone. Pansexual and bisexual can mean the same thing, though not always depending on the person using the label. These are just terms to help people define themselves. Since today's theme was library and the sub-theme was pansexual, I decided to draw a meet cute between a cute non-binary librarian and a bookworm pansexual. This one gets Spoopy Spider because of one of the characters blends a bit too closely in with the bookshelf, making them difficult to see. Agender is not having a gender at all. A common misconception is that agender also means you're aro ace. While an asexual agender person can exist, this doesn't necessarily mean that they go together. Just as asexual and aromantic can coincide, but not always. They'll use they/them pronouns, and as we already discussed, it is perfectly grammatically okay to do so. Since today's theme was cozy and the sub-theme was agender, I drew an agender person surrounded by a bunch of cozy things. I tried to put in as much cozy things as possible in the canopy. This one gets Magnificent Moon. The arms are a bit weird, there's no structure with the legs, and the hood is also a bit weird. Genderqueer is similar to non-binary,
but has a slightly different meaning. They don't use traditional gender distinctions, but they may identify with male or female genders. This may seem confusing, but understanding the differences can mean everything to the LGBT community. So let me explain. Some people will use it interchangeably with non-binary. Others will use it to not mean cisgender. This is similar to how queer is used. Some others also view it as a political term, and unfortunately, being in the LGBT community just means you're political. Just remember, gender identity is relative to the individual. Since today's theme was candle and the sub-theme was genderqueer, I drew a genderqueer witch with a pet candle. This one was also a contender for perfect pumpkin, but after some analysis, the head shape is a bit weird, as is the expression, so I have to knock it down to Spoopy Spider.
Gender fluid is someone who doesn't have a fixed gender. This may seem confusing, but please, let me explain. Unlike myself, who has a fixed gender, woman, their gender can move and flow, at least their internal sense of gender. This can be expressed through gender expressions such as hair, makeup, or clothing. So it's more complex than, say, wanting to wear a suit one day and wanting to wear a dress another day. They could use any combination of pronouns, such as she, they, he, just whatever makes them comfortable. Just remember to be respectful and mindful of others. Since today's theme was moon and the sub-theme was gender fluid, I drew the moon in 3 different stages as a gender fluid person. And here we have another contender for perfect pumpkin. The monochromatic palette does suit the character, but there's just one more that I do like a lot better, so this one gets Wonderful Witch.
Bi-gender. Something that can be confusing. Doesn't mean people who are bi-gender are confused, though. I did have some trouble understanding it, so if I get anything wrong, feel free to correct me. Bi-gender means that someone's personal gender identity encompasses 2 genders, male and female. Hence the prefix bi. This is different than agender, in which agender means having no gender at all. These people have an equal pull towards male and female. This is different than femininity and masculinity. They could use any combination of pronouns such as she, they, he, anything really. Since today's theme was fairy and the sub-theme was bi-gender, I drew a chaotic bi-gender fairy.
And here we have this week's perfect pumpkin. The color palette is chaotic yet cohesive. The wings were challenging and yet turned out amazing. The expression is wonderful. I just love this one so much. Thank you so much for watching, and please like and comment. Subscribe for at the end of the month, where all the perfect pumpkins are going to go up against each other to receive the ultimate mystery rating. I'll catch y'all next week and have a perfectly pumpkin day.